Warning, this podcast typically features spoilers and strong opinions. Proceed with caution.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Grooms, One Plot, the podcast where two lifelong storytellers who are married talk about stories. I'm Pavi Proczko, audiobook narrator, author, etc.
And I'm Colin Funk, childhood development expert and teaching artist.
And today we are going to be talking about Inside Out 2. But first, let's talk about our moment of the week.
Sure.
What have you been watching?
Well, we just got COVID again.
We did.
So that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
But that gave us a lot of time to sit down and watch things. So we watched all of Fleabag for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, I loved it.
Excellent.
It's great. If you haven't seen Fleabag, wow,
Yeah,
it's great.
it's
It's only
really
two
good.
seasons. It's worth it. It's dark comedy. It's good. It's very funny. But also dark. But specifically, the moment I want to talk about was they, throughout the season, we find out pretty early on the season, spoilers, sorry, but her, the main actresses, which we determined that her character doesn't have a name. Is that what we
Correct.
determined? That's
Yes.
interesting
Mom
choice.
doesn't have a name. Dad doesn't have a name. She doesn't have a name. Priest doesn't have a name.
Priest doesn't have a name.
Mhm.
That's season
A lot of characters don't have names, which is fascinating.
But her best friend, Boo, is dead.
Yes.
She has died she is in an accidental suicide, essentially.
Uh-huh.
Very horrifying. And we found out it's because the boyfriend she was seeing had slept with someone else, so she was sad, and so she was going to hurt herself in the bike lane so that he would have to visit her in the hospital. But it went wrong.
Yes.
So we get little glimpses of Boo throughout the season, but we also get these moments of separately, the main character we also know is there's an obsession with sex and wanting to be validated physically and sexually and romantically, if you could say that. And she was having a discussion with someone, and it has multiple discussions, and it keeps something about sex not being healthy or sex being whatever, and she keeps having these weird flashbacks of this,
these moments.
it's sex is dangerous, essentially, is what it's. And I'm oh, there must be some sexual trauma in her past, and it is so well sprinkled through that we get to a point. What are you laughing at?
Just the moment.
That when we were watching it, there was a moment where she has a separate little flashback to. They say something about sex being dangerous, or sex
It hasn't done anything good for me, or something like that.
And we flash back to Boo being upset, and both of us, both me and Pavi,
At exactly the
same time went. We gasped, and I was I just figured it out. I figured it out at the same time.
oh my God. Yeah.
I was don't even say it. I know exactly what.
Oh my God.
That at the same exact moment, because of the way it was crafted,
It hadn't occurred to me at all.
Nope. Didn't dawn on me that it was that character. It was Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character. She's the main actress. It's her. She wrote the show, produced it.
She's the one who
slept
with the boyfriend.
The boyfriend.
Causing the whole, precipitating the death, right? So she blames herself for it. But it hadn't even occurred to me that could be the case. And it was sprinkled so well.
And it was just
in that one moment,
us, the format, the template of what these little flashbacky things mean,
right?
And with it being the same format, like
Just
it automatically
at the same moment we both
into our brains that was like I mean,
it was the reveal. It was
really
insane.
wild.
It was, yeah. I'm not sure how they did it because they did what, and it had to have been on purpose.
Of course.
Because they don't really, like, it is the reveal.
Yeah.
That's the reveal, and they don't say it explicitly.
Right.
Oh my God. And I just, like, we both gasped at exactly the same time. And we were like,
because it's like a shocking revelation. And it was like so clear in that moment that that's what had happened.
Right.
You're right. It was the reveal. We learned it then without them saying it at all.
I am so impressed with that. I mean, it's like really, I've never seen anything like that.
No, I mean, like,
and it was like the.
I was like, I got it at the same time. I got it.
It was setting up the format, and it was like the way that we've dealt with these flashbacks before, that we see Boo at these moments. It's just like something about I mean, I would have to like go back and like graph it out on like a spreadsheet to really know like, oh, this is how we were able to be. It's like an illusionist or a mentalist suggesting subliminally to you. It was like it was suggested subliminally in small pieces the whole way through, so that at that moment
easy
it happened.
Tricks that like you just repeat the same image in the same way, in the same, like we know what this feels like. So when we use that same device on this other moment, it lets us make the connection ourselves.
Right.
And
we realize we've been told the whole time. They've been telling us the whole time.
I mean, it was such a great version of what we talk about in that, like in giving us the information we need at the time we need it and not at any other time.
Just in time, not just in case. We don't like just in case.
No.
We like just in time.
Just in case it's a bitch.
Yeah. Of the two Justins, I like just in time.
You got to think about that.
Yes, I did. I almost said the wrong one.
Yeah, but because it was so, it didn't need a lot.
No.
It gave us just what we needed in just like maybe two, maybe three other times it happened. Like it wasn't.
No.
We weren't like.
It's just everything that we know about these characters and the story, and then you're given these three little blips at exactly the right time, and it just pops into your brain. It was amazing.
It was really, really well done. Because we're already like, ooh, there's something there, that there's something unresolved. She's choosing to not resolve it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's interesting. Already we're like, we're logging that. But it's not like, I don't know, there's been so many times where, you know, we're waiting for the other shoe to drop and it's so uninteresting or anticlimactic in some way.
Yeah.
And this, it just was tight. It wasn't more, it wasn't like a new whole storyline added onto it. It was a complication. It made everything else that we knew already even more complicated.
Yeah.
But honestly, we knew like every other piece of it.
Yeah.
And just like putting it together, being like, oh my God, of course.
Yeah.
Obviously.
It just plugged in exactly right, like a Lego.
Ooh, it was good. It was very good. I thought that was a very good show.
I loved it.
It's really, she's very good. And she just like, I love a show that is clearly written by and for a certain person and there's certain personality, certain sensibility, certain brand of comedy.
I mean, that comedy is exactly, she created it. You know,
that's what it feels like. Yeah. It's like with like Brian Jordan Alvarez we talked about with The Gay and Wondrous Life of Caleb Gallo, that it's such a specific brand of comedy that it is so exciting because they wrote it themselves.
Right. Yeah. It's specifically molded to them.
Yeah.
No one else could really, I mean, you probably maybe could do it, but it's just like it so perfectly fits them. Yeah.
It's hard to find that magic, I think.
Yeah. Oh, it's good. Loved it.
It's my moment of the week. What is yours?
Mine, well, we also went into the archives, the film archives, and now
we watched some old movies.
It's been almost 20 years now since Brokeback Mountain came out. It was 2005.
Just about 20 years.
Just about 20 years almost. I'm gonna throw up. And
wow.
Rewatching it, it's very good. It's kind of a big deal.
I mean, it is definitely a big deal.
I mean, it was like
2005?
in 2005 to have this story. I mean, like before then, how many gays were kissing on screen? Like,
well, Will and Grace was the first.
It was the first
TV
gay kiss.
Male on male. I think.
Male on, was there? Who kissed? Was it him and Vince?
No, him and Jack. It was.
They weren't even in love.
No, they weren't. That was another piece of it. They got away with it because
they weren't.
Well, because that was the storyline too.
Yeah.
In the show, there was supposed to be a gay kiss that got canceled, and so they were on they were in the background of like a news program, whether
and then they kiss
and they kissed to just be on TV.
God, I mean,
so it was pretty
to have this big deal, blockbuster, Oscar winning,
and a real blockbuster. Like there might have been some smaller niche, whatever, indie films.
Yeah. There were tons, but to have this unabashed,
it won the Oscar, didn't it? It was
sexual, but not, it's not pornographic, but there's they don't shy away from sex. They don't, I mean, one thing that we did know was it's less explicit than we remember it. I remember it being a lot more raunchy than it was.
It wasn't that raunchy.
No.
I mean,
it wasn't actually.
That, because they really just have the one sex scene.
Yeah.
And it's the raunchiest part was he spit in his hand.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
that wasn't enough.
Yes, that's
that wasn't enough saliva. Oh my God. But also,
other than that, it wasn't hard to watch. It wasn't it wasn't that graphic.
Right.
It wasn't.
Right. Yeah, and I mean that speaks to just us being probably
we're
a little
also
desensitized.
20 years.
Yeah, 20 years in
later.
And I wonder how much of that too is just it at the time that it came out, to have that kind of intimacy between men on a screen was reserved for, late night Cinemax, right? It's you wouldn't have seen that. Right. And so it feels very graphic, even though it's when you're comparing it to I mean, the end of The Fifth Element is more graphic. It's
sure.
It's it's certainly longer, at least. It's there are things that we wouldn't even bat an eye at when it was these straight romances.
Oh, yeah.
We would never have even thought
that had been happening for forever.
Right.
There have been pretty graphic sex scenes.
Mm-hmm. So to have this very, I mean, it was kind of an important movie. It really was. And
yeah,
I think the moment that I really love is, the movie is really great, but there's the scene that's excellent is when he finds out that Jake Gyllenhaal's character, Ennis finds out Jake Gyllenhaal's character has died. And it's
spoiler.
You've been warned, but when he gets it, I totally forgot that that's how he finds out. He finds out because he gets a letter from him and it's stamped deceased. I mean, it's not
from him. It's from himself. He sent it to Jack. It got sent back.
Right. Yes. And I just don't remember. It's so anticlimactic to get a response. That's how you find out. That was shocking to me. I totally forgot that that's how it happened. And you're just kind of wait a minute, is this real? Which of course is mirroring just kind of the very natural kind of denial bit that anyone might go through. It's it doesn't really feel like that it happened, because all it was is the stamp on this letter that I sent. What's
Especially
happening?
They never lived together. They didn't ever spend that. They always were apart for long periods of time.
Right.
So I'm sure it took him a long time
to even get over to process that it's that person's no longer in this world right now. But he has a conversation with Jack's wife, played by Anne Hathaway.
We literally watched this right after Devil Wears Prada.
We did. We watched Devil Wears Prada. We're
back to back
in Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah.
And she is so good.
She is so good in that, in Brokeback Mountain.
Yes.
I was like, okay, you're
killed
acting.
it. I mean, it's like a phone call, so it's like she's just on the one end. I mean, it's like Florence Pugh in Midsummer caliber. Where's that conversation at the beginning of Midsummer? She's like on the phone, and it's like
on that phone call.
it's like the phone call is excellent, but it's that caliber of like, I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen. I don't know if I can't even think of a comparable scene that a man's done. Like even watching Heath Ledger on the phone is not the same as watching her. Where like it's like close up. She's like framing. Her face is totally framed. Her eyes are enormous.
I mean, it does. It helps on screen for sure because you see the emotions so clearly.
Anya Taylor-Joy from the Anne Hathaway School of Acting. Just big eyes.
Just keep your eyes big.
But it's like.
I mean, it's like in the hours. It's like the conversation. It's in person, but Julianne Moore and Toni Collette.
Yes, it's exactly like that. Where it's this, there is so much happens between the lines, and it's incredible.
Like, it makes me like really appreciate film acting specifically as an art form.
Yeah, it is. Unique.
You and I were both.
We were
theater
stage actors,
theater performers.
I was on the
majors.
screen in Chicago
but you
Fire
trained,
but you should go see it because you're going to see a stage actor acting on camera.
Yeah, you can tell.
And
absolutely. You can tell the difference.
You can tell.
But like Julianne Moore, Florence Pugh, they're like film actors.
Incredible. Yes.
I'm not saying they wouldn't be good.
I'm sure they would.
Stage,
but they know how to work a camera.
Those are skills. The things that are happening with your face without like doing too much. That is hard.
Yeah.
And it is like a very special skill it makes film
extraordinary. It makes it its own thing. It's really unique.
Yeah. That's why there could be, I mean, like we started with silent films because like you just watch their faces and you could get they're really great silent film stars.
Yeah.
That just did it in their face.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't do that on stage.
Right. And Anne Hathaway she does it beautifully.
I was like, oh, she really is a great actor.
Yeah. And I just wanted to point out that whole scene as a moment, and then when you there is like even like boiling it down, there's the moment where she's like very aloof about all of it, and then there's a moment where it turns where you like see her like coming to terms with or finding out maybe, who knows exactly what it is, but something about realizing that Ennis and Jack were having an affair. Like you can see that realization or
what that's the
reintroduction
to
her mind. You don't know exactly, but just to see the turn it's beautiful. It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best part of that film too.
Yeah. It makes me, it's those moments that like, I'm like, what an interesting, beautiful moment that we get to keep things inside of her brain in a way that like in a novel you can't.
Right.
And in a musical, they choose not to a lot of the times. Yeah. And I'm like, that is like one of my pet peeves in musicals is when they like take this like beautiful, very personal, private inner moment and like where you get to kind of like plug yourself in and plug your feelings into it. And when they make a song out of it and all of a sudden like you're hearing word for word what's going on in their brain,
like, well,
you're like, it's done. It's gone.
My creative license as an audience member has been revoked.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting how to use kind of intention, like masking it while, and like, because when you watch, you can see that something has happened and you kind of, even though we don't know specifically, we see something, we see the perspective. There was like we were talking about that a little bit with some writing. And some books that I've been reading is like one of them. It didn't have very much of like a perspective. And then another that I was reading, a Travis Baldree short story. I don't know what the perspective is. I don't know like who the author of this like story and who they're talking to is, but you can just by the way it's been written, you can tell there is one. There is a perspective.
Right. Well, they don't have to like...
You don't have to have it be explicit.
No.
And it's better sometimes when it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. I often think that like it's worst when it's unclear. It's still bad when it's clear, but really patronizing in the way it's communicated.
Yeah.
I think it's like the most artistic when it's like, it is clear, but left to interpretation.
Yeah. We don't have words for it, but we know what's happening.
Because how
in, like,
human
inside.
of an experience is that?
Yeah. I mean,
we don't
all of
have
our emotions,
words for
right? It's like we
everything.
don't have, like the words we have for the things that we experience.
We make up new words literally every day.
Yeah, they don't do enough. Like that's...
No, never.
It's not, and it's not enough to actually encompass everything that we're experiencing.
Right. That's why we have those like funky long German words that are weird, very specific niche emotions.
Right.
But like
even those don't. But
they like.
But that's why those exist. Because they're like,
we have to borrow them from other languages.
Yeah.
When they're like,
ennui.
Or that's what when we talk about translation. I know we're going off the rail right now, but like when we talked about Carmen.
Yeah.
And the translation and what love means, and the words for love in French are different than the words for love in English. There are not direct translations, so it's hard to
really get the connotation when you're watching the super titles go through. Yeah.
But speaking of ennui, what a great
segue to our story of the week.
Our story of the week.
Or story of the episode is what I mean. Inside Out 2.
Inside Out 2.
Let's get to it. Sorry, we've been rambling for 20 minutes. We should put it in the show notes.
Dare we?
What we actually talk about for our moments of the week.
So
Inside Out 2.
Yeah, let's get to the...
Switch hit synopsis. So this picks up a year after Inside Out 1.
Huh.
Inside Out 1, she turns 11 at the end. And so now she's turning 12. We have our familiar emotions that live inside her head.
Yes.
Joy and sadness and anger and disgust and fear.
Yes.
But things are changing.
Yes, she's now...
Riley is going to be going to...
she's a couple years out of high school, but she's on a hockey team that gets scouted by the high school coach.
Right, but her friends are not going to go there. So there's like a lot of feelings.
She's turning 13, 14?
She had just turned 12 and she's going to high school the next year. Yeah.
How? She's not that young then.
Maybe not. I don't know. I don't remember.
I don't know why you were that specific. You were like...
Because I remember them mentioning it at the beginning. Maybe she just was 12 and maybe she's going to be turning...
Maybe she's going to turn 13.
I don't know. Point is...
Who knows?
That she's going to go to this hockey camp. Her friends reveal that they're not going to be going to the same school as her the next year. And
this is all happening
inside her head. She's going through puberty.
Yep. An alarm goes off. The puberty alarm that was hinted at movie 1. Puberty alarm goes off, and now some new faces trickle in.
Yes.
Like their big construction team comes in, but then new emotions come in as well. And those emotions are anxiety, envy, ennui, and embarrassment. I believe those are the 4 new ones.
And then there's...
Technically nostalgia.
Yeah, I was going to say. Nostalgia is there,
but she's not there yet.
She's relegated to the basement. Not your turn yet. It's so funny.
Cute. Very cute. So we have new emotions. And in Riley's... trying to, now she's like, now everything's kind of like in flux. Everything is like torn down.
Yeah.
And everything's being rebuilt internally. And then externally now dealing with all of these big new situations. Her friends are going to leave her. So now this is the last summer they're going to be spending together at this hockey camp. But also this hockey camp is very important because if she impresses the coach, she has a chance of like getting on the team as a freshman, which is like very fancy and not very common.
And she also has all these older people to impress too.
Right. Not just the coach, but the older girls in the class, especially the team coach, the captain. Yeah. And the team captain knows who she is and is like trying to be buddy, but not with her friends. So now there's this conflict between, do I stay here and just like have a fun, silly time with my friends, or do I like look ahead and focus on
my future?
The future.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening internally is that Joy is, trying to keep her happy.
Yep.
Trying to like push Joy to the front. But anxiety comes in and seems to be the one taking the lead.
These new complex emotions start to kind of take over.
But particularly anxiety in that like you need like we need to base our decisions based on a fear of the outcomes.
Right.
And Envy is on board. Like the new ones, obviously.
The new ones are all, and they bill themselves as the complex emotions, and they're like, we are complex emotions, and she no longer needs you simple ones. So they kind of repress them, send them off into the depths of Riley's mind.
Yes, in the same place that Joy has been sending memories that have not been so pleasant, she's been sending to the back of the mind so that she can forget about them.
Yes.
Which
will come
very interesting.
Yes.
We also find out that as she's been getting older, she has a new system, a core belief system being built, and Joy's been very specific about the pieces of the memories that are like creating these like pieces of her core self, and these the beliefs that like give her
kind of like a mental unity. It like unifies
like
her life story into what she thinks,
what she believes about herself.
Yes.
So essentially, her core belief around that age is, I'm a good person.
Right.
Very general, made up of things like, I'm a good friend.
Yeah.
I'm good at hockey. Like very,
My
very
parents are proud of me.
Basic things.
Right.
And with the new complex emotions, they rip that old core beliefs off and send it to the back of the brain.
Yes.
And that's
a big problem.
Big problem. So now she's having like a crisis of identity,
which is you're seeing that by she's like kind of faking what she likes. She's putting on airs to impress the people around her and she's not being very genuine, and she's kind of like left her friends behind. So there's like, that's how it's like manifesting in her.
And because of the crisis, because she's like no longer has this strong idea of like what her identity is,
right?
She's kind of like grasping at straws,
right?
She has these panic moments of like, oh my gosh, my friends are leaving me. I have all these feelings about it, and now these new complex feelings that I've never had before are coming in and telling me new scary things, and I literally I can't believe this anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And I have to do whatever it takes to survive. Right now. It is, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So,
it's a really good,
the
really
old emotions,
good conflict that like the outside matches the inside.
Yes.
It's very,
it's pretty clear.
Obviously inside out.
Yeah. It's so then the old emotions are trying to kind of like recover the old sense of self, the old belief.
Yes, they go with, they grab the core belief in the back of the brain where
and they've been launched. They're
trying to bring it back.
And they end up like sadness ends up coming back to the thing. There's all these hijinks happen, and then they're able to finally all kind of like get back to headquarters and try to like implant this old belief system, but it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Is that what happens?
So while they're gone, the new beliefs.
Oh, it's already started.
Anxiety is like pumping Riley with new core beliefs,
right?
Trying to like strengthen her like core identity,
right?
And in like,
and it's all just fear-based. It's all anxiety-based, I guess.
So essentially, what she does, she builds a core belief of I'm not good enough,
right?
Based on because like when you're just building yourself up based on like I'm not sure that I can do blah, or I need to do this, or I'll do that. Like this like either or very like conditional beliefs. If I'm not able to do this, then I'm not good enough. Like you're now taking your values, bringing them outside of yourself, and telling yourself, if I don't hit these
accomplish
arbitrary
outside goal,
the outside goals, then I don't have value internally, which is it's not good.
Yes.
And so that
the only way they're able to like get back, the way that they are able to return is they ride the wave of repressed memories.
Yes.
So like all the stuff that Joy's been like sending to the back, it gets released and flows into the core memory pool.
Yeah.
Creating this very complex identity for Riley that is filled with lots of different emotions based on all of the bad things and good things and everything
good things.
That
and now the core belief is now not a static
it's
thing.
Constantly
it's
morphing
now
and changing,
like a living, breathing, changing thing, which very interesting. I want to talk about it more, but I'm trying to get through the synopsis. Trying to limit myself.
Right. In the end, so after they do that, in the end, she has her core, and she's like, it's like it all.
Anxiety has
like an attack, and she has to kind of like get herself out of the attack. Her friends come, and they kind of have a little atonement moment, where she apologizes to them, and they're able to play the rest of their, final game of the hockey camp. And she's very impressive, and then there's a boy at the end, right? Is that the last thing that happens? Is she just like talks to that boy?
No, the last thing that happens is she like checks the list.
Yeah, she checks the list, and then her eyes go bah, and we don't see exactly what was on it, but her eyes.
But we assume that she's like made the hockey.
She's made the hockey team.
Like we fast forward till when she's in school,
right?
And we think she's made the hockey team.
Yes.
But that's not. It's not. Again, it is not. It's not. It seems clear, but it's not. We don't know up to interpretation.
Right.
It can change.
Yes. If they need to do a Inside Out 3. Yeah.
Which is like, I'll start by saying like, it's as far as like something aligned with development. Fascinating. It's a fascinating, like it's a great. I think it's a really interesting. Like study almost.
Yeah.
And I like that we now see it in a different stage of her life, and like and a very specific stage in her life.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, they use puberty, obviously.
Right.
And a lot happens in development in puberty. And there is a little bit of like a breakdown to build back up. I mean, there's like, it's very interesting. I think they hit on something really interesting in the first movie. Kept it as like very simply.
Yeah.
In that first movie, and at that age, it made sense. And they just created a really interesting system that like mirrors what's happening. It's like it's complex enough that like enough is going on, but it's not so specific that I don't know, they get away with a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm shocked with how flexible they are, because they're like, this is like I think I would have been dubious if it was like, well, they have a system of how your brain works, and it's just like these cartoon characters, and they're running a thing, and it's like this.
Yeah.
I'd be like, that is not.
That's not how that works.
That's not how it works. But it's interesting because like the people at the forefront, it feels like they're running the show, but there's a lot more going on.
Yeah.
And there's even so much, even in that first one, that like Joy, who seems to be the person running the show, is not really running the show.
Right.
There's so much more happening in the brain that she doesn't even know about.
Right. Yeah. There's these processes that are just like going. I think that's interesting because it speaks to like how emotions, we like to think of ourselves as like being very rational people, and we use reason to like justify all these things, and we use reason to temper emotions, but we really in actuality are using like reason is the tool we use to justify the things
reason
that
only exists
to support emotions.
Yeah.
So I think that's shown really interesting, really well in the first movie and in much of the second movie, where they do go in and they're like, they feel like they're running the show, right? They're like, oh, they're using all of their reasoning to justify all these things, but they're just using the reasoning to justify their thing. Joy is using reasoning to justify her thing. And then Disgust is using reasoning to justify her thing.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, well, now this thing happened and now, Joy has to like push the thing on the, it's all just kind of happening.
Yeah.
And then they're post hoc justifying stuff.
Right.
And that's exactly how emotions work.
That's how our brains work.
That's exactly how brains work. Yeah.
We're just like, they are convincing themselves that their position is right until they are forced to change.
Right. And it's interesting, they always like push the button and then tell you like why pushing the button. It's like the reaction will happen once they push the button, and they're like, well, I thought I was doing this thing. And it's just like, they just like are pushing the button. Like they're not like, let's see, how do we do the dials? There's no dialing or anything. They're just like, and they just like touch the thing and it happens.
Right. Yeah, so many times like that all of a sudden like, oh,
they are
that's
compelled.
Now, this moment is now that emotion.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're like,
oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean
it felt like it felt like it just felt like it.
Yeah.
If that's what it felt like, I was supposed to do it.
Right.
And it's like overwhelming, and especially like in the younger years, there's a little bit of like what sticks to the wall.
Yeah.
Because that's how we learn.
Mm-hmm.
We learn what emotions serve us in what situations.
Right.
And, the first movie really focuses on, what happens when you try so hard to live in one emotion and ignore the other ones.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very simple.
Yeah.
Very simple idea.
And
Joy is trying to control it, trying to keep sadness away.
Mm-hmm.
Don't feel sadness. Don't feel sadness. Don't feel sadness.
Right.
I mean, like we see,
like
when mom was like, hey, thank you for being our happy girl.
Yeah.
Like, please stay happy.
Yeah.
That's puts so much weight on her.
Yeah. And especially with all the circumstances around. And that's like part of what's beautiful about the image is like, well, she's just been her life has been uprooted. Mm-hmm. She's moved across the country, and now she doesn't know her school. She doesn't really like her house. She doesn't like her room. And so all of those memories that were once joyful are now sad memories.
That is brilliant.
They're sad now. That's so genius.
That was so brilliant.
And they're like, what is happening? Why are you doing it? And Sadness is like, I don't know. I just thought I wanted to look at it, and it just touched it. And because like it kind of is. It's just like, oh, that used to make me really happy, and now I just
thinking about it makes me feel sad.
Make me sad now, weirdly. Wow, because it's like missing, and there's like both. They both live there now. There's like a really beautiful moment in that first one.
I mean, especially as like, around that age, like just starting to like feel those.
Yeah.
Because that's complex for that time period. It's
right.
just like feeling sad about a happy emotion.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I moved around the time I was 10, and I had a really hard time with it. Like my mom made me read the book Who Moved My Cheese?
Oh,
So stupid. Like as a 10-year-old, I'm like, that didn't help me at all. It's dumb.
Okay.
It's dumb. I don't like it. It did not help me. Inside Out would have been brilliant.
Yeah.
I would have loved it.
Mm-hmm.
But because I had such a hard time with this, like these very happy feelings and associations I had with the house that I was leaving.
Yeah.
And it's like very hard to be like, and never again.
Right.
Maybe you won't like the new place. Maybe you won't make new friends. Maybe you, whatever.
Yeah.
And I stayed in the same school district. It's not like I even like moved friends or anything, but like just the house itself.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine moving across
I know.
the country and so many things going wrong and
Mm-hmm.
her parents not being particularly happy throughout. And
Right. Like having to kind of like prop up the fear that you can hear in her parents' voices as they're like discussing things.
yes.
So how does it differ in this one, you think? Do you think they were as successful
In what?
in
What are we talking about?
conveying that kind of complexity? Like that successful story bit of like having, those happy memories turn into, sad happy memories. Like that complexity that we learn. Like joy is like, oh my God, I needed sadness. We needed each other the whole time because I don't mean anything without her. And sadness has value, right? There is actually value in sadness. She is where we get empathy. Oh, it just looked like he really needed someone to talk to when she's talking to Bing Bong, right? Oh my God, how did you do that? How did you get him to stop? Well, it just looked like he needed just someone to listen. And that's where sadness is, right? It's in the empathy. It's in that ability to like sit here with you.
Allowing sadness to happen.
Yes.
Is what allows, we talk about all the time. You can't move past emotion if you don't
do it.
Sit with it. If you don't feel it. If you don't feel it, if you're like trying to ignore it, then it's still there. It's just like, you need to process it.
Right. So in this new one, we've got all these like, we've got the complex emotions. I think really kind of the point I'm getting at, I'm seeing in this, there feels like less of a purpose for them, right? It's like they seem to only be there to ruin things.
Okay.
In a way that like Joy thinks that about sadness in the first one. Oh, sadness is just making things bad, but actually we needed that. In this one, it's like they come and they really do just like ruin everything.
I guess my question is, this is now a slightly older film.
Sure.
Do you think the kids that were about Riley's age in the first film would have looked at sadness and thought, no, she's doing an okay job? Or is that like an adult? Is that something we could see in as an adult? That maybe as a kid we'd watch and be like, yeah, stop sadness from doing that. She's going to ruin everything.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
I guess like anxiety was getting stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
She was successful at a lot of things.
Yeah. Ended up going too far because it was the only thing that was the only thing.
It was the only thing. Sprinkled with those other.
But anxiety was making good plans.
Yeah. I don't think it's different. It's a totally different thing. It is not the same story.
Sure.
I definitely think it's a successful movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was as mind-blowing to me. I wasn't like, it was clever and it worked.
Yeah.
But it wasn't maybe as moving. It wasn't as it wasn't as poetic, maybe.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's what I'm seeing. There's like the poetry of how those things match up. Like the best we get in
There's
Inside Out 2 is like
obviously.
is the parallels between like what's happening inside and outside is really lovely synergy there.
Yeah. Because I think like the poetic, I mean, like I think where it happens for me, oh my God, you need sadness in happiness. The moment was it was like a negative. It was when, for me, it was when anxiety finished the core belief, and it was, I am not good enough.
Yeah.
And that was like, I didn't even think about that. But of course, if you're just building your whole self-esteem based on fears,
yeah,
you're saying nothing about me is good. I have to do these outside things.
Right.
And I think like that moment, because like that's the first moment that anxiety has any idea
that what she's doing is bad or is not going to work.
Right.
Yeah.
And it leads to that spiral moment.
Right.
But like that, I think it's that buildup where we're not seeing this kind of like because it was happiness, happiness, happiness. Oh, let's temper the happy. Like we need to acknowledge sadness for happiness. There's something sweet about it. And it just like doesn't hit the same when it's like,
it's anxiety.
It's anxiety.
Well, and we as adults are watching anxiety do all this stuff, and we're like, that's not going to go well. That's not going to go well. That's not going to go well. And then it doesn't go well. And then you're like, yeah, it wasn't going to go well.
But also like I still do it sometimes where I'm like, if I don't do this, or if I'm not like, it's like built in this like fear-based motivation.
Yeah.
And I think it's like such a big piece of like, at least millennials.
Adulthood.
Yeah. I feel like different generations have different like motivations, and millennials have like a particularly easy, like we tend to fall into like being like, no, it's okay that I'm anxious about it. Because if I wasn't anxious about it, I wouldn't do it.
Right.
Like I'm watching Riley and being like, see, if I was just a little bit more, I wish my anxiety manifested like that.
Yeah. That I would just wake up 3 hours early and practice.
And do it, and do it, and do it.
Yeah.
And like, I think it's brilliant that they went that way, because like from the outside, an adult might see a very productive,
motivated person. Yeah.
A high level, high functioning, gifted child.
Yeah.
And that's like the big thing for millennials is like, were you in a gifted program? Are you now just like an anxious ADHD adult who can't get anything done? Like it's like, that's like a trope. That's a millennial trope. And it's like, really, it's not as sweet. Like like playing with happiness and sadness is just bittersweet.
Yeah.
We're not as goopy emotionally about anxiety.
Right.
We're not as like, we don't feel that same. It's not as
anxiety
deep an emotion.
And anxiety is not as charming. And they didn't even make her that charming. It made her kind of a little bit ugly, a little unpleasant to look at, a little
just like
off-putting,
quirky, a little silly.
Yeah.
But kind of no nonsense, get stuff done.
Yeah. And I think that was an interesting moment when that was an effective moment when she completes the identity and it says, I'm not good enough. And then she's like, oh no, that's not how that was supposed to go at all.
Yeah.
What do I gotta fix it now? Where it's like how like anxiety, we're just spirals, right?
It's spirals.
Like, you're just like, oh, it's just gonna do better, it's gonna do better, and then you've done so much that you just like made it worse, right?
Yeah, I just think part of it is like, I think it is so clearly relatable. And in like a, oh yeah, been there kind of way. It's not like as big of a realization maybe for ourselves, because it's like, we've all been to therapy. We all know that our anxiety is spiraling. I don't know. There's something about like the simplicity of happiness and sadness in the first movie that like we don't really consider. Like when we go to therapy, we're not really talking about the simple emotions.
No.
So it's like revelations around those are really kind of moving.
Yeah.
And you're like,
it's like, oh, how nice if it was all just that simple.
Yeah, it's nice, but also like there's something you feel so. I mean, we try so hard, I think, as adults to not like feel the deep emotions. We don't really drop into joy. We don't really drop into sadness. We don't really drop into these very often.
Yeah.
We try to keep like more and more, we keep everything as level as possible.
Right.
That's why it makes sense that like, oh, she's just kicked all of these base emotions out. Because I'm trying not to like feel those really.
Yeah.
I am living off of these like, they're more complex, but they're
social.
They're not as deep.
Yeah.
There's a social element. There's a more logical element.
Yeah.
They're not like simple inside trigger. Like there's like a process to get them to feel that way.
Yeah.
If this, then that. Like it's not just
right.
Like all of the core beliefs from anxiety are, if I do this, I will be this or I will get this.
Right.
They're not like, I am good to friends.
Yeah.
Oh, I helped my friend. I am a good friend.
Right.
Like it's not. I don't know. There's something that we lose when we stop allowing ourselves the simplicity of those feelings and thoughts and emotions.
Yeah.
Where we like now move up and we're like, but now it's not just this because we're part of a bigger thing and now we have to consider this and this and this. Now, am I a good person? Well, I do everything I can, but have I researched that this thing that I've bought isn't run by 17,000 bad corporations? And what do I mean by bad corporations?
Yeah.
Are they paying people well? Do they have slave labor? Are they ruining the environment? Are they testing on animals? Are they
That's exhausting.
Sustainable? Are they equitable? There's so many, like we get so bogged down. And I think that is just like a natural part of the progression is that like now that we're dealing with these new emotions and the actual like the big stakes are weirdly not as, they're not going to be as moving.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Can we talk about embarrassment?
No.
Well, now I'm embarrassed.
Yeah. That's what I was hoping for.
So embarrassment helps sadness when sadness comes and like infiltrates the headquarters. And like, do you think it has to do with like Riley's embarrassment about how she's behaving?
That was my interpretation for sure.
That there's like the embarrassment is just kind of like living back there. Because I like was trying to figure out like why would embarrassment help? Like this new complex emotion, but it's like, oh well, I'm kind of embarrassed about the fact that
about the way I treated my
I've
friends.
treated my friends and the way that I'm kind of like, prostrating myself.
I guess like embarrassment doesn't leave, right? Embarrassment is always like in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, that what my interpretation is that embarrassment's in the room with anxiety. And so feeling embarrassed, the way to deal with like anxiety's way of dealing with embarrassment is very specific.
Yeah.
But sadness as a way of dealing with embarrassment, when they are together,
yeah,
there's a like a connection. There's something that I think embarrassment can relate. It's just like fear obviously relates to anxiety.
Right.
And I think they try to do something like obviously like they gave fear. They're like, fear is like, I love anxiety.
No,
blah,
I think
blah,
we're
blah,
gonna get along. Yeah.
But I think there's something about the relationship between embarrassment and sadness.
Yeah.
And what happens when there's like, when sadness touches your embarrassment.
Yeah.
When embarrassment, like
It's 'cause
when they're
embarrassment
working
is seen
together.
a little bit.
Yeah. Embarrassment
Yeah.
is seen in a little bit. When anxiety wants to ignore embarrassment.
Right.
Or say, thank you for that information. That means we have to do this.
Right.
Not, oh, like you said, sadness's superpower is allowing the emotion to be the emotion.
Right.
And I think the embarrassment was always there, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would have absolutely been happy to help sadness out.
Okay.
I think like when they...
It's interesting because embarrassment, like part of why I ask is like embarrassment was the one that scooped them up and sent them away.
Yeah. Because
Riley was embarrassed about her feelings.
yeah. Yes, she was embarrassed about her feelings, and it made sense that like anxiety was driving, embarrassment was right there,
Yeah.
and anxiety was like, boot him, boot the feelings.
Yeah. Okay. I buy it. I wish there was more like from some of the other emotions. Like some of them just seemed inconsequential to me. And
Yeah,
a little bit
I
in like
agree.
the first one too, but it's that again is a simpler film. So it's like I was able to forgive that one.
Yeah.
This is a little more complex. I just like envy and ennui and fear and anger. I was a little like,
Yeah.
why you would probably have some more role in this.
Yeah. I mean, it was hard. I mean, like envy was always chiming in.
Yeah. But she always felt, I don't know, I felt like she was always just another anxiety. Like it didn't feel like envy to me. It was just like really tangential to anxiety. And maybe that's like making a point too, but there was,
I think there is
the
something
personality was different.
Well, it's like, I mean, like the base beliefs were very distinct.
Yes.
And it doesn't like the complex emotions. I mean, like the more emotions you have, the less space each of them
Of course.
has, and the more bleed.
Mm-hmm.
I think like, I think I agree that especially like character story wise, I think I would have just liked more.
Yeah.
I think in actual, like, if we're trying to capture like an image, a metaphor, that it makes sense to me. It does make sense that they don't have, their voices start to not feel as distinct from each other. Some of these are just like popping in here and there.
Because they're driven by the goal of anxiety. Anxiety is driving, and so...
Well, and then here's my thing about that is like, I find it really interesting that anxiety becomes the driver for the most part. Because that is a huge part of puberty.
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden you feel like everything's been blown out.
Yeah.
And you are afraid of everything. There's like a fear and like anxiety. It's like very specific. It's now like very driven, and it becomes, like you said, it's like socially focused.
Yeah.
And it's trying to make these calculations. It's not just like very base fear.
Right. Yeah.
It's like this.
It's anticipatory. It's looking forward. So it's trying to anticipate all the things that could possibly go wrong and head them off.
Mm-hmm. And so I think because it is such a driving force around that time, the other emotions are there, but like the other emotions really just like ping pong right back to anxiety.
Yeah, they serve anxiety's purposes.
Yeah, because they're like, just feeling makes you feel anxious around that age.
Right.
And you are fighting for your life. It is, you are tearing yourself down and rebuilding yourself. Both, I mean, like literally biologically that's happening.
Yeah.
And especially with the way we build society and community, socially, we don't answer all the questions.
Yeah.
And then you kind of have to figure them out.
Right.
That's what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's why, like, there's no, I believe that it's like socially driven, that when we go through puberty, that's when we start like being like, yes, we are, that's an obvious time where we are testing boundaries and taking risks and like trying new things. But it doesn't have to be as like, it's such an American trope of like, you're going through puberty and like teenagers going through puberty are like, they hate their parents.
Angsty. Yeah.
Like, don't talk to me, mom. Like, and it's but it's so, I think it's so socially driven.
Yeah.
So I think there's a big social piece to why anxiety, especially for contemporary American teens. I mean, contemporary, I mean in the last like 100 years.
Sure.
But especially like the way society works and the pressures that we put on teens at the same time as we put these like very strict limitations more and more every year.
Mm-hmm.
And we're wondering why people don't have like the coping skills, because we're like telling them, especially now with social media and TikTok, like we're telling people that there are right answers to everything. We have AI, we have Wikipedia, we have like information at the drop of the hat. Like kids are getting less and less practice figuring things out on their own, thinking problems through.
Yeah.
They are much more likely to look up the answer online instead of like realizing there aren't real concrete answers to most questions in life.
Yeah.
So I think that just like leads to anxiety. There's a right answer and I need to find out what the right answer is.
Yeah.
That's exactly what anxiety is doing, is making the beliefs based on, the answer to this problem is if this, then that.
Right.
And that is built in to how we run society. Yeah. It is not just, it is obviously a biological thing. And it is a natural thing that everyone goes through puberty, everything goes through. There is like a natural anxiety that comes about at that age. There will be. You will have anxiety when your life is ripped apart. Your body is completely different from one day to the next, and weird, scary, gross things are happening. It's anxiety inducing, but it is also exacerbated by just the way we run
the world.
At least this community. And
if you're tuning in now, welcome to Colin's Therapy Hour. It's very, it's astute.
I saw some, I don't want to say discourse, but like conversation around anxiety in the movie, and some people being like, oh, clearly Riley needs to be medicated.
Okay.
Why was that shocked?
Yeah, that seems so extreme. Go on.
That seemed so extreme. That reaction.
Sorry. It didn't even occur to me. I guess I'm shocked. That's all.
Right. I mean, like the thing is like, because anxiety got so bad and she's having a panic attack. And I think people forget that that there is like, people forget that anxiety is, there is a natural amount of anxiety. I think we've talked about this before with like toxic stress.
Yeah.
stress itself is not toxic.
Right.
Because like stress is, I mean, we're talking about like the hormones that flood your body when you go into a fight or flight.
Right.
That's like the stress response.
Yeah.
And toxic stress is when you are having that stress response over and over and over again, and your body's not processing it. You're just flooding with these like very, very...
Not closing the circuit.
You're not closing the circuit. You're letting your body flood with these like, they can be very destructive hormones.
If they're not used. If it's like, telling your body to go run and you don't run, and you just sit there, you're just going to be sitting there with all of those chemicals, and they're going to eat at your body.
They're going to eat you. They can eat you from the inside out.
Yeah.
They're there to... You run away from the tiger.
Yeah.
I know your body's telling you to run away from the tiger, so...
Let's do some jumpy jacks.
Yes, you could. I mean, you physically do something, or you could just lean into your problem.
Yeah.
But I think there is a disconnect. I think people like more and more see like, oh, there is anxiety, so it is disordered. No, that is, I disagree, and I don't think the amount of anxiety that she's feeling is disordered anxiety, even though that it is intense and it takes over and it gives her a panic attack. If she was having more than one panic attack,
and
like
in
every hour or something, like if she was like, if the panic attack was happening over and over and over again, and she had no control over it, and
it was like seemingly. I mean, if you look at everything that's happened to Riley, it's like it makes perfect sense that she would have all of these feelings, and she would be full of anxiety, and she's just been sent to the penalty box for hurting her friend, and she feels terrible. It's like all of that. Of course, that makes perfect sense. That would cause an anxiety attack.
Absolutely.
After a full weekend of not sleeping, and
this is her first. I mean, like, this is the first time her body's being flooded with these new things.
Yeah.
Like this is her learning to process those things.
Right.
That is how that happens.
Right. And you don't need to just tamp that down with drugs. Not yet, at least. Like, we don't know that yet, at least.
Sure.
It's just, like
people are so quick to want to, like, I think especially we have a lot of, I'm talking about millennials so much in this episode, but like, I feel like it is very common for millennials to be like very proud of their diagnoses and how good their life is since a diagnosis and since medication.
Yeah.
That's great.
Sure.
That is an excellent thing that our generation has like found. It's like, wow, we can actually be proud of these things that have made our lives difficult, and we get to find solutions and not feel shame about them.
Right.
That's great. But to apply it to this situation where someone is literally just learning these emotions for the first part, the reason that us millennials have such an issue dealing with that is when we had those panic attacks as kids, we're just told like, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop doing that. That's not, shake it off. It's fine. You're fine.
Right. Yeah.
No empathy, no, like I said,
instruction, no modeling.
That kid
how to get
was
over
probably like praised for the hard work, for the things that like some of the actions that were destructive.
Yeah.
This need to wake up early and like probably not eating enough, probably not sleeping enough, but like overtraining and working really hard.
Yeah.
That's definitely praise. Like child athletes, absolutely. Those things are praised. We can balance that. We can look at that and be like, we don't have to actually like feed into it, but we need to teach people like this is where we teach them.
Yeah.
Because like we all go through that. We all have that those periods of high anxiety, and especially in that piece of development and in any big shift in development, there's going to be some anxiety around just like the new pieces of your body and your mind.
Yeah.
There's going to be some anxiety around it. Those are normal and natural, and intense. It's just like we learned in the first movie, we have to feel them.
Yeah.
We have to do it, and we like and we need to be seen and feel heard, and we learn how to cope.
Yeah.
And so much of our generation was just given really bad coping mechanisms. And so now we deal with dysfunctional versions of these things because of years and years and years of poor management of those things.
That's depressing.
It is. But I would I just thought that was interesting that I saw a conversation about like, ooh, clearly she has an anxiety disorder. I'm like, that's not what this movie's about. This movie is not about an anxiety disorder.
Intense emotion does not make a disorder.
No.
Sometimes emotions are intense.
We should want that more.
Yeah.
Both of these movies point out that shoving the emotions to the back of your brain does not help.
Not helping, yeah. Oh. Anything else you want to talk about in the film before we move on to our...
Yeah, I guess like story-wise, just like as far as like, I know it's not as like, it doesn't feel as poetic or as moving, but like just like basic story, does it do the job?
Mostly, I think. I think I run into a problem with having Joy be the main character in this one. It didn't line up as well. In the first one, it was like very clear how much Joy was like the personification of Riley's joy, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this one, it was like Joy was a separate entity trying to do something. Like, I don't know if I'm articulating that well.
Yeah.
There's something about how, like, the fact that all of the emotions are not involved. It's like Joy's the only one trying to set up I am a good person. And it's like the emotion, you're not, I'm a good person. Like that's not even Joy. Like it almost maybe would have been better if the original, what was it? The core belief was all around Joy, right? It was like, I'm a happy person or something like, it's like, there's something
like,
about it that I was just like.
The core belief like it makes you feel happy.
Yeah.
The core belief isn't happiness.
Yeah.
It is just like fed by happiness. Just like the core belief isn't I'm anxious when anxiety did it, is I am not enough. It is an anxiety inducing belief.
Yes.
Just like a joy inducing belief is I'm a good person. That makes me feel good.
Yeah.
I think like there is something to like the pursuit of joy.
Yeah.
Like that being, especially because when we go into the other heads and it's like dad is driven by anger, mom is driven by sadness.
Right.
Like you see the one that just takes control.
Yeah.
And they are not pure sad. Like they're not the same.
Right.
They become more complex themselves.
Right.
And I think joy just being the driving emotion is still like I think that's still part of the point that they're making. That she's still at base,
she's still this happy person.
She's a happy person.
Yeah. And
that the
that's
joy,
like part of her personality.
The joy is what's trying to push through the anxiety. If she wasn't that happy of a person, the anxiety joy wouldn't have pushed through and made her a happy kid again.
Right. And to some extent, anxiety wouldn't have anything to be afraid of. Right? Like,
sure. If it was fear-based, a fear-based kid anyway, anxiety would just take over the reins and they would continue
doing it.
Yeah. And it becomes, because like fear as an adult, as a functioning adult, you can be a fear-based living adult.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like obviously oversimplified.
Sure, of course.
Oversimplified. But it's just an easy image for us to use.
Yeah.
That like, I think a fear-based adult is like, we all know those people that are only making decisions based on fear, and they're totally normal people. It's not like they're like afraid of everything. They're not like jumping all the time, but like that piece inside of them that's like, I don't know. I'm not going to make that decision because I don't know.
Right.
But that does get nuanced as you get older.
Yes.
Even if that's like the base.
Yeah. So
you could be a happy person and still be fear-based. I guess is my point.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So as far as being a good story, structurally speaking, I think that it for the most part is very good. It is paced really well. There is a little question I have about the characters that we see at the beginning, like Joy. Has she maintained the lesson she learned from the first one? She certainly has, regarding sadness
for sure.
And the others, like they're mixing their emotions now. And I think it's interesting to view this as a, okay, now that you've learned this important lesson, we're going to blow up the whole paradigm. Now your lesson kind of doesn't matter anymore. It's like your lesson doesn't, it's like we don't have the same board anymore. The board is different. So that strategy that you just thought of, we just eliminated it. Now what do we do? And that's
that feels clear that they did that.
Yes, I think that's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm saying that is what they did.
Okay. I was like, saying that's not what they did. Yes,
but there is a little bit of like, well, there is still like a headquarters, even though they kind of like were making motions about destroying the thing and like knocking it down and building it back up. It's just they make a big show of like eliminating the headquarters just to create a new headquarters with like a bigger board, I guess.
They're not done.
No, they're not. It's just, it feels almost like we are actually in the same place. And like the board wasn't reset as much.
There's a
1
foot in, 1 foot out in puberty.
Yeah. That makes sense too.
There is kind of a dissatisfaction. It's not a clean swoop. This is different. We don't know how to do it. Because the new strategy for her is now we're buddies.
Right.
Now we work together.
Mm-hmm. And as we work together, we have, and
that gets thrown out the window. That gets exploded. It's not, like she learns that like, I have to respect all the emotions.
Right.
And the other emotions
don't necessarily agree with her. Yeah.
So,
all right, not going to work. We're going to get rid of you now. You can't work with us.
Right.
And now she has to figure something else out. So what is the solution that she figures out to ride the repressed memories into the pool of beliefs? Do you feel like when she does that, she does it because she found value in that pool in those repressed memories, or because it was a literal, like physical, or like it's like, well, we literally need the little marbles to take us to the pool so that we can get up there. It had nothing to do with the memory specifically. It had to do with them, the little people inside her brain, needing to ride the wave. And there is something like, there is a metaphor there where it's like, oh, well, in order to like get your feelings all back together, you need to kind of like parse all of your memories, right? Even the ones that you are back there. I wish there was more of a moment of like, she does have a moment where she's like looking through memories and she doesn't see what she's looking for. I just wish she was like, she had gone to that pile. It was a conscious thing where it's like something that connected. Yeah, that it's like,
okay.
Oh, there's all these memories and I missed something in them. Oh my God, we need to get these back. This is how we're going to get back. We can ride this. It's not just like we're going to blow a dam and ride the wave. It's these are actually valuable and we can ride them. Like I wanted both of those things because then it would have, because I think that was
like
an
in terms
important,
of like a story.
Yeah.
Like especially as Joy as a main character in terms of her development.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. And I think I agree. I guess like, I think I understand the desire for it to be like, I'm not precious about this anymore.
Yeah, and there is something, that
like,
she's like done.
I know we're gonna dump it in.
Yeah,
but like, and we gotta just do it.
Yeah, and maybe that was a little bit unclear to me too. That it was like that there is like nope, we don't need this one, and then we send it away, and like how that I want her to like really not want to deal with them until she realizes she needs to be less precious about it, right? Like there's like the thing that her, misunderstanding of the world is the thing that's preventing her from making the choices she needs to make, right?
Yeah.
She thought that she could just send all of these things away so they wouldn't get mixed up in the belief system. She totally misunderstood the whole assignment. She actually needed all of them, and she needs to be less precious about the things. So even if they don't explicitly go to the memories and be like, oh my God, look at these memories, I was wrong about them. But to have a bigger change to be like, I just really need to be less precious about all of this. Because it was the fact that I sent them back here that even has undermined me. Because if all of this had been there, it would have had a stronger belief system. It couldn't have been ripped out. Perhaps, something like that. But I think that is maybe as like that is the issue maybe that I'm seeing with Joy as like the main character, where it's like where are we seeing her misunderstanding and how it kind of like.
I mean, I think it was less about the getting rid of the memories and more of the very careful curation.
Mm-hmm.
That being the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but the thing is, like, writing it wasn't the only solution.
Yeah.
It's the realizing that it's because they do write it back and try to put the old one back.
Yes.
So it's not learned yet. I think that's part of it too. She hasn't learned.
She didn't learn the lesson until it like happens, and I'm like, but I wish the decision was made. It's not an accident. I didn't want it to be an accident that this new identity is made.
Yeah. But it was also done with like coming together and calming anxiety, the ability. I think there was I can't specifically remember the climax, what happens. I think there are choices, especially with the core belief system. I understand what you're saying, and I think I agree. I'm just like seeing, I think, the reasons why they chose to do it otherwise. Yeah. And they don't
because I think that even speaks to like how they get anxiety out of the attack, right? How they stop anxiety from freaking out is like you just need to let go, and then anxiety decides to let go, and rather than. I don't know. There's like, you get the sense it's like, oh, there's something about anxiety having a realization that she needs to listen to Joy, and Joy was just kind enough and saying everything's okay and getting around. Where if it was instead like, oh my God, we need these memories for one reason or another, whether it is literally we need to like ride them into the pool, and I know it's gonna do this thing. I know it's going to create this thing, but she actually doesn't need us. So whatever happens on the other side,
that's
is
be what happened. But
yeah, it's like whatever happens on the other side, we're gonna have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But we know Riley needs us.
Yeah.
So regardless of what these memories are and how they might affect her belief,
that felt like
we need to be there.
Right.
And I want that to be more important, and I want that to be why anxiety is like, oh, I can pull myself out of this. This new identity has bloomed. The other emotions are here, actually. We can all be here because those other memories are back. The memories that we've repressed have returned, and now you actually have a new perspective.
Right.
During your anxiety attack, oh, yeah, okay. I've suddenly had a thought, and it's all these old memories that I just totally didn't remember. Like that would even be a reason to induce an anxiety attack, is all of these repressed memories. Like that's kind of where I was expecting it to go. Whereas like those memories are going to like break out and it's going to cause a big problem.
Yeah.
And it was the solution, but how interesting would it be if it was like both the problem and a solution?
Yeah.
It like caused the anxiety attack, but then also was able to like bloom into something more.
Yeah.
And the anxiety attack happened because it was so curated, as you said. The curation's the problem, and we're going to need to break out of that, and it's going to hurt. But the thing that replaces it is we exhaust it, and then we get something new.
I guess like that's, I hear what you're saying, and I just think like I do think they did try to like focus on like that. The careful curation and just like the messiness of letting things happen. There is a messiness to the solution.
Yeah.
It's not clean.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that well thought out. It's not that, it is.
Yeah.
And it like,
I don't really mind that it's not well thought out. Like it's more, I think what we had said, there's just like the seeing Joy learn her misunderstanding, like where that happens needs to be kind of on purpose, and then we need to see like what the result is.
Okay.
Oh my God, I learned what my misunderstanding was. I'm going to do this thing, and now we're going to see how it plays out. As opposed to, I'm still have my misunderstanding, and I'm going to like go do this thing physically and get back up there and then calm anxiety down, and then now I'm going to learn my lesson.
I guess I don't feel like it doesn't work. It's just not as strong. It's just like a weak.
Yeah, I think it's a weak placement for where the discovery happens.
That's fair. I'd have to rewatch, but it like, as I'm thinking of it, it does seem like it could be strengthened. It could be fortified a little bit.
Maybe if we rewatch it, we'll
maybe
be more specific about what I'm seeing.
But it does feel, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think you're right in that like the actual, like you said, Joy's, the thing that she is not seeing, she's not having like a very distinct moment of like, I now see, here's my choice because of it.
I'm making choices, and then I'm like, oh, I just happened to now see the thing. It worked out,
Right. Which is like, there's something about puberty too that is just like messy and like, it's not intentional. I don't know. There's something.
Yeah. And
something
like, that works for puberty and might not work so well for a story.
Sure. Well, that's like, this is
like
where,
even having like a twist, like something like, oh, I did make a decision. I did have a realization, and I just didn't realize what that meant.
Speaking of stories, and I obviously think Joy is the protagonist in both movies, but do we think that Riley is more of a protagonist in movie 2?
Oh yeah. I think yes. There's a joint story. They are parallel stories. So there's two. I don't know if I
felt that about the first one.
I did not feel that at all in the first one.
I guess that's why I'm not as worried about Joy as a complete, complex character.
Mm-hmm.
While she is, we also have a character that is.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to see it
happen. It's really, because
like,
in the first one, it really does feel like they are remote controlling her. And in the second one, feels like they are just like living parallel lives
Yes.
that happen to like match
Also,
up.
It's
weird.
It's pretty, like, that's, I guess, like, in the end, I do feel like it is more technical, this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And there are impressive things that it does.
Mm-hmm.
I also don't find it as moving. I didn't find the solution as strong.
Yeah.
Like you said. Like, I didn't find it as moving. I didn't find it as powerful.
Yeah.
As the first movie. But it is, I think they did a good job keeping it simple enough still while adding complexity and adding more and making it a little bit more technical without losing all of the heart of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So overall, I thought it was successful.
Yeah, I liked it. Overall, I liked it. Yeah. Let's move on to ratings. If you're done.
Yeah, I think the question the thing that dawned into my head, I think, was the question about Riley being protagonist.
Yeah.
Whether or not we think, I do think it's like two stories.
It is two stories. Yeah. It feels like two stories.
Like two distinct protagonists.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah.
But well done in that.
Mm-hmm.
In doing that, because that can be really sloppy.
Yes.
I mean, and to do that, having two parallel stories that inform
influence
each other, hard.
Really hard. Yeah.
They had a good, I like the framework. They started off with a nice,
Yeah.
it's a nice system that they fleshed it out really well, and then they just they did a nice job
a little bit.
blowing it up just a little bit.
It's very cute. Yeah. Ratings. Story.
I'll give it a 4.
I will give it a 3.5. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say pretty solid. You know, Pixar does its little
Yes, they
structure.
do really well.
Let's do a whole video about the Pixar story structure.
Oh yeah, good idea.
Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Because they have a system, and we can use Inside Out 2 as the framework.
Let's do it.
But I think it'd be interesting. Just do a little mini hey, let's talk
let's
about
watch.
why Pixar kind of knocks it out every time.
And how Inside Out 2 matched it.
It fills in those slots. So story 4, solid.
Yeah.
It's not it's not untouchable, but I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I think I'd give it less than 4. It would be 4 because the again, it's not as moving, but it's that misplacement, I think, of that discovery is it should get down for me a little bit.
That makes sense to me. And I think I guess that maybe I feel like it's a 4 and not, I think it's a solid story, but I feel like it's a very technically done story.
Mm-hmm.
And not as there's not something it doesn't feel as organic and interesting as the first one.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in a bad way, but that's why it's not a 5. It's not, there's a missing magic
Mm-hmm.
to the storytelling itself.
Sure. Yeah. The first movie was clay and it was done freehand, and the second one was added onto it, but after they had manufactured a few versions of it, and it's in pieces now. And
they CGI'd a couple of the puppet pieces.
Right.
It's not as
great. Technical.
I think a 4.
I think I have to give it a 4 also. The animation is beautiful. I love
beautiful.
the edges of the emotions that they're they blur. They don't have, I don't know. It's so cool.
It's not an outline.
Yeah. It's really beautifully done. The acting
Pixar is
in their faces is really great. Most of the voice acting, I give it a 4 because I am just so sad that Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling are not in it. I am so sad.
Disappointing to me.
I was very disappointed.
They got what's her name? The actress who plays Phyllis. I don't know her name in real life.
Yes, they did.
They got her to come out of retirement for it.
Oh my god!
Isn't
her name Phyllis?
It might be her real name. They do that sometimes, but but she is so
she's so good.
Perfect. I don't know if they could have done it without her.
They couldn't. I can't even imagine.
They could have replaced, and I don't say this lightly because I love Amy Poehler. They could have replaced Amy Poehler before.
Oh yes,
they could have replaced Sadness.
Yes,
because that is so iconic and specific. Not that Amy Poehler doesn't do an amazing job. No. She absolutely is terrific.
She is terrific.
But I don't think you
could find anyone that could duplicate. I mean, our friend Sammy, who was on the episode that we did about West Side Story, could do Joy as Amy Poehler.
Well, yes,
she'd be able to do it, and people might not even realize that it was not Amy Poehler. But
sure.
But I don't think there's anybody that would do that.
Just her. I mean, it's like Roll to Soul. It is very good.
Yeah.
Good casting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, a huge part of, I think, why either movie is successful.
Mm-hmm.
They pick good voice actors. I do like Ayo, I think is her name. The person who plays Anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
She's in The Bear. I've never seen The Bear.
Yeah. We should do that.
She was in the Camp movie.
Yeah.
What is it called? Camp? Is it just no? Camp is the old
Theater Camp.
Theater Camp. She's in Theater Camp.
Mm-hmm.
That's like I think the only other
one
I've seen her in.
Who was like the con.
Yeah, loved her. I thought she was
so fun.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
in Theater Camp. One of my favorites.
Stage combat or whatever.
She did all the classes.
Oh my god, so funny.
So very funny.
Yeah.
She did a great job.
I think the music is great.
They
always say Michael Giacchino. So good. He does like all the Pixar's now.
It's good.
Yeah.
And technically, and like I said, it feels like a puzzle to like get all the pieces of the brain, emotions, and like that. It
is a difficult thing. It's a difficult task. So I do not envy them.
But that's why
story.
I do think it is very technically done.
Yeah. They have to like
it is mapped out.
Map it out.
Really
they have to do like a mind map to like figure out all
to do the inside out.
Sure,
like they haven't. I mean, like that's not easy.
No, it's not.
It's like to have an abstract world and a real world.
Yeah.
And they have to inform each other.
I know. It's
and
hard.
Not get wacky, but also be silly. They do an excellent job.
Yeah. So 4.
I say 4.
Rewatch value.
5. I'd watch it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm like, great. I'll pop it on. We watched the first one on
the airplane.
Our flight back.
On our flight back from our trip. And I mean, I would do the same. I would watch it.
I would watch it again.
I would love
it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love it.
Easy peasy. This one almost is easier to watch.
Yeah. I mean,
it's an easier watch than
be able to fall asleep to it more than the first one. First one, I'd be like, I want to watch it again. I just want to see it.
No, but yeah,
I would. Yeah, and of course, I would rewatch this 100%.
Yeah,
and recommend anybody watch it. I think it's great.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's great.
And watch the first one first.
Watch the first one.
Yeah.
Well, and that's. I mean,
you want to.
Yeah, don't watch.
You don't want to watch this one.
You could,
but
don't.
Like, yeah,
watch the first one.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
it's not going to make any sense.
Like maybe it's a 4.8 because of that, but like
maybe,
I'll just say 5.
No, yeah, just 5.
It's if somebody was like, I've seen Inside Out 2, I like it. I've never seen Inside Out 1. I'm like, great.
Oh, you'll love it then.
Yeah, I wouldn't be like, oh no, terrible. Like if someone's like, I've only seen Legally Blonde 2 and not Legally Blonde 1.
Oh, what's wrong with you?
I'd be like, no.
We'd watch that too.
It's 4th of July. That was our 4th of July movie.
That was our 4th of July movie. That's very funny.
Red, White, and Blonde.
Yeah.
It was an okay movie, but like not anything like the first one.
No, not at all.
The first one is brilliant and perfect.
Yep.
And this one is
not.
Let's
Wonderful. That's our ratings in the bag. Superlatives. Best new emotion.
Why don't we do
we're going to do our regulars. Sorry. Oscar-worthy moment.
I mean, the moment for me was I'm Not Good Enough when that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, God. Yeah.
That's the one that like slapped me.
Yeah, that's the closest to like a big emotional upheaval in it. Yeah. Oh, my God. Well, that's horrible. Yeah.
That was moving, I think, to me. And just like the realization that it just like, it surprised me, but made so much sense to me at the same time. And it just like, and to see that character gutted.
Yeah.
Just like, there was just like that moment of like, that's not what I meant.
Yeah.
And, it's like, she kind of had a similar journey to Joy from the first one, where she's like, I'm doing this, I'm holding on to my thing, I want to do me, it's just me, I'm just doing the, like, and then realizing like,
I actually don't
for me
have,
to be successful, I need the other ones.
I don't have the tools on my own. Yeah.
And to relive, to like watch it being relived, I think that's even hard. Like, that's so hard.
Yeah.
It's like, there's something very moving about the parallel.
Yeah.
And how like everyone was like, oh, well, that's the other thing, is like all the characters were like, don't.
Yeah.
When in the first one, Joey was like, don't, to sadness, and sadness, like, it ended up being like, I should stop saying don't. And this one was like, please, we already learned this. We already know this.
Yeah. Right.
No, we don't need you anymore. And like how it's tragic. It's like,
that is.
It's just tragedy. And like, it's a very tragic moment.
Tragic for anxiety to learn that the hard way.
Learned the hard way.
Yeah.
When we
already did this. Yeah.
We did this.
Yeah. You just didn't realize it. You didn't know, and we didn't recognize this as the same situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she wasn't there, and like,
yeah.
Very interesting.
I think I'm going to give my Oscar to Ennui. Ennui's introduction, I think, was very funny. I liked Ennui. I wish there was more Ennui.
Yes. Just like in life. But she didn't go through a lot of ennui.
No, she didn't. And that was kind of like, I was like, well, why are you even here?
Because it's there.
I wish it was more. But I liked Ennui. As a character, I thought very funny.
Yes, I agree. I mean, yes. Speaking of, we could do our...
Unworthy.
No.
I mean, unearned moment.
I am unworthy of your moment.
Unearned. I think my unearned moment is when Embarrassment speaks.
Oh.
But I didn't like that. He didn't need to talk. It was nothing. It was a nothing moment. I didn't think he needed to say anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a.
I'm gonna do something, and now I'm embarrassed about it. I liked him as a silent giant, and just wanted it to stay that way. It didn't need to change.
But I guess it feels like, and maybe they didn't do this successfully, but like we are like goofball is one of Riley's islands. So that person that grows up, the happy person that's a goofball, has embarrassment, but like owns it.
Sure.
So like the evolvement of
evolution.
Evolvement. I was like, that came out of
evolvement.
Evolvement. The evolution of, it makes sense that would be a progression for.
Yeah.
It didn't. Okay. It didn't. I think, to your point, probably unearned in the context.
Certainly in the context. Yeah. They certainly didn't do that. They were not successful at conveying growth in that justified that. I didn't see, and it like there wasn't like, it's like if it was even something like in the first movie where it's like, oh, puberty, what is that? Oh, I'm sure it's nothing, it's fine. If we like had some kind of like she is being a goofball and then feeling kind of embarrassed, like Riley is, and we see there's like a bit of growth, like so we see like a hint of something coming instead of just like he spoke for the sake of having the joke to like pull his hood back down and have his butt crack out again. You know, like it just didn't earn it for me.
That's fair. Like, I think I got it, but I don't think it. I think I agree that it was not super earned.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with. I don't think that was it the secrets, the dark secrets?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure they felt really integrated.
Totally forgot about them.
Into the story. Like in that, like, so much of everything else that happens, like, has that inside outside piece. And I don't know how those secrets, they don't seem to be affecting the outside.
Yeah.
In the way that, like, her dreams in the first one were affecting her in real life.
Right.
Is that in this one? No, that was the first one. Which they woke her up with the dreams. That was the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But like, we didn't.
Was this one, right? We're up with the dreams in this one because she has to wake up and be like, "Oh my god, I need to go do a thing."
Was that this one?
Yeah, it was this one.
Oh my god.
Oh no, maybe I don't know.
I literally don't remember.
I don't remember either.
Because I thought that was like when she takes the bus. They like wake her up and they make her take the bus.
She takes the money out of her mom's purse. Maybe that was the first one. I don't remember now. Uh-oh.
Either.
Tell us in the comments if we're idiots.
But there was like the
they didn't.
Secrets.
The secrets didn't do anything, and I think that's really
like
interesting.
The TV show that she used to watch, like, and how that, like, because it's like they are clearly making it's Disney, so clearly making a reference to Mickey Mouse Club with the O'Toodles, which is like very funny, very cute.
Yeah.
As someone who's been forced to watch Mickey Mouse Clubhouse,
Of course. Oh, toodles.
Every parent is like, "Oh my god, we know exactly what that is."
Yes.
But we don't see her thinking about it or feeling those things on the outside.
Yeah, and I wish they were more involved. Like, I wish they were
because
connected to embarrassment.
Yeah,
because you're embarrassed of your secrets.
Embarrass, fear.
Well, really, a lot of them could, but like,
but there's a lot of emotions that could be tied to them. And,
yeah, they're just like you should be able to invoke them. They just didn't. You're right. They didn't feel very relevant.
Right. We use the whatever the character is that has the bag.
Mm-hmm.
The bag.
Yeah,
the
little like pouchy.
Pouchy. Oh, pouchy. Is that what it was? That's what they use to blow up like that's like part of the solution.
They need it. They need the dark secret, but I'm not sure how that manifests
exactly. It's
in the real world. It needed to have a parallel.
Doesn't have. That is like one of the technical elements that I don't think quite matched up.
Yeah.
Or they didn't tell us how it's actually functioning. Where it's like in the first one when it's like the clown escapes the mine jail because it's like one of her fears. I'm pretty sure it's the first one that they wake her up from the dream.
Yeah,
and like
that's how she wakes up.
Ends up they scare her out of the dream.
Yeah,
and but like all of a sudden like this thing from your past like comes up in a dream like that. It just makes sense to me.
Yeah,
there's like something lurking when like everything's rattling around from all these things, and all of a sudden this big scary thing pops. Like it just makes sense.
Yeah,
that would happen in a way that I'm like, but like your secret that you still like this TV show is the reason that these things explode in your brain, and for like you know what I mean. Right. Like it doesn't
match up with what's going on.
And I feel like they could have.
It probably could have. Absolutely. I mean, one of the funniest things that I've seen on television on a movie ever is that crazy like video game character fold over and like roll.
Just roll slowly.
Just so stupid. Like just playing the game and she's like, here we go. I'm going to get you. And then he just like rolls over stupid. It's so stupid. And it's so funny.
Very funny.
Oh my God. So funny. But again, it doesn't really do anything.
Right. Were there repercussions for her secrets getting out? Like, is she thinking about them and like what?
Yeah.
Because they were caged.
Right.
and now they're out. So what does that mean?
What does that mean? Are you going to like accidentally talk about them now or what?
Like that. Those I kept being like, is there something are we going to do something with that? Like her imaginary friend helping her in the first.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
And it makes sense because then eventually too, he like fades into memory and
he sacrifices himself.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
In a way that the deep, dark secrets don't.
Yeah.
But they could have.
Yeah.
Because there's something to like, especially with anxiety being like, get rid of that embarrassing thought.
Yeah.
Lock that away. And for it to be like, part of it is like blowing it all up to like incorporate those things.
Right.
Just like when we see the whole scene about her being embarrassed by her music taste being.
Well, and that's like would have been a perfect opportunity to use those things, right? It's like,
yes.
Or
like,
later on, you're like, actually one of my favorite video games
secrets.
is blah, blah, blah video game. God, that character is so funny.
He's
oh my
out
God.
again. Like, but because he's out and not a secret anymore, it's breaking other things open.
Right.
There's
something to do there.
And it just like...
It kind of seemed to complicate the story, but then they didn't do anything with it to not complicate the story.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
think I agree with you.
I think it was the secrets. They weren't quite...
Yeah.
They were the least technically sound.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so your favorite
Best new emotion.
Or you could say ennui?
No. I'm going to say nostalgia.
Okay.
Nostalgia is the best new emotion. She's
Nostalgia
so funny.
Is the best. I love that they keep kicking her out.
I know. And she's like happy about it. She's like, oh, okay, I'll be back. Which is hilarious because it's nostalgia.
And it's like, I like the idea that like she's maybe feeling hints of nostalgia. Like she might get there early.
Yeah.
But being held back.
Yeah.
Like she might be this like happy nostalgic, like she's going to be, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's like very,
that we can
but, like,
see what she's going to be like.
The sparks are there. Like, like she's an old soul already, right? You know, like there's interesting pieces that like we are looking at these silly things and we can like extrapolate into
some
this
profound
bigger life
personality thing. Yeah.
I think that's what's fun about this. In a world where we're like obsessed with horoscopes and personality quizzes and things like that, like to distill pieces of you into this like very tangible, colorful, unique things.
Yeah.
And to like extrapolate from there, because that's what we do all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We love it. We love to categorize. We love to be like, just like when like even before I'm like, I know people aren't really like, you're a happy person, you're a sad person, you're a fear-based person. Like that's not a real thing. That's not really how humans function.
But that's how humans function.
But
that's how we categorize
it's like,
ourselves.
It's an easy way to think about yourself or other people. And we do that. We do categorize ourselves and each other. And we do, that's when we're building our identities for ourselves, we are, picking the pieces and the patterns. We're making the patterns and being like, the pattern is telling me it is this image. And we are obviously way more complex than that.
Right.
Just like, this movie shows both of those things really well.
Yeah.
The archetypes and the complexity.
Right.
They are both, we experience both of those things.
Mm.
And
profound. It's
very interesting. That's why I'll say ennui just because I like ennui.
Oh, okay.
And it was just like very interesting when ennui was like driving, like what that looked like.
Yeah.
Because it feels like anxiety driven.
It does.
Ennui.
Yeah.
So like I am curious.
I would have liked to have seen legitimate ennui.
Yeah. Some real ennui, just like you said, with envy, even embarrassment.
Yeah.
Like embarrassment had some really good moments.
Yes.
But
what happens when the others are driving? What happens when ennui's actually driving?
But it's hard because ennui, like that Riley and being driven by anxiety, that's not the kind of person she is.
Right.
Where she's not being driven by ennui.
Right.
There are probably times in her life, but that's not the story here.
Mm-hmm.
there are pieces of him that come out, and it like colors the like those like teenager things.
Yeah. I mean, even if it was something like she was forced to hang out with her old friends and she's just like, just wants to get with the new friends. Ugh.
That'd be interesting.
Okay, we can sit here and just do this boring thing. That's where Ennui's driving, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, once this is over, I can go do that other thing, but I have to sit here and listen to this.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. So
But
that anxiety can go
because
take over there.
I think it's because it's actually a complex story,
Yeah.
and they are simplifying.
Yeah.
And I think they need it too.
Yeah. It would have been too much.
But I think especially out of the new driving emotions, he's the one I'd be most interested in seeing.
Ennui spinoff. Best mental metaphor. So of all the new like
fun little devices
they've put up and structures and things.
Are we saying most accurate or
your favorite? It could be because it is accurate.
My favorite, I'll say my favorite and I'll let you go. My favorite is the sarcasm. I just think it's so stupid and funny. Yes. Like when she starts being sarcastic, a huge chasm opens up.
It's a sarcasm,
which like does serve function to like, now now there's more difficult terrain.
Yeah, you've like distanced yourself from
there's a distance.
Your goal. Yeah.
And now, but I think it was such a funny idea that like they're trying to call to the people across the chasm, and as the sound goes across the chasm, it becomes sarcastic.
What a jerk.
And
my God,
it is
so funny.
So funny. Oh, you guys are really good at your job. Oh, you guys are really good at your job. It's very funny. Dumb, and it just made me giggle.
Mm-hmm.
That I think was my favorite for sure.
Oh, that's a good one. Then I think I'd go probably with like that all of the workers, like as they are tearing everything down. So first of all, it's like puberty starts and they just like suddenly just start knocking things down. But then they take a break.
Yeah.
They just like abandon
it.
I think that is so funny.
That's
that
excellent.
They just like peace and they're like, we're on a break, we'll be back. And it's just like unfinished. And it's like, oh yeah, absolutely it's unfinished. It's going to be unfinished for a while. And it's just like really slow work.
Yeah.
And I think that's so good.
It's great. I think that is excellent because it's like, and they just like don't show up the rest of the movie. I think it's brilliant. I think that's so fucking funny. It just is really funny. We'll be back whenever.
We just break everything and we're just going to leave it for a bit. What?
Because it's broken for a while.
For a long time.
It is not.
It's very uncomfortable.
It's in disrepair. It's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's terrible. I just wanted to also say, I think what I think was really interesting about the first movie is that it gives us and kids like vocabulary around talking about these things. And I think the most useful and poignant metaphor is like the core belief system. I think that was really well done.
Yeah.
And that is like, it's made up of like, it's grown from memories.
Yeah.
But it's like not the memories
not
themselves.
Memories. It's like your self-conception based on,
And it's like these beliefs, and it's core beliefs. So a belief about yourself. It's
right.
Self.
The story that you tell about yourself.
Yeah. And that it like, and the way that like as a young person before puberty, it's so simple.
Mm-hmm.
And it is like, just like, I'm a good person. It is so, I think the way that like identity is kind of like broken down and ripped apart just is actually kind of a nice metaphor with like how it works. Because you kind of have to. It's like, I know we're like, Joy, you shouldn't do that thing where you're like pushing things to the back and only doing and being so curated. But also like those are the puzzle pieces. Those are the building blocks we have at those ages. That is how we start to build it. And you literally have to tear it down and rebuild it.
Yeah.
And so I think like using that as kind of like a central idea in this and that like system is really interesting to talk about, and it can give some vocabulary, especially like as an adult being
a
like,
way to talk about these things. Yeah.
Where are we? I mean, like,
where did that believe? Like, is that a thing you believe? Where did that come from? What's the memory that you think of when
the core? Because like especially a lot of like contemporary therapy is based around like history,
right?
Your history, kind of. We can look at your brain wiring by looking at. We can understand your brain wiring by looking backwards to the things that may have wired it that way.
Right.
And I think that is it like gives kind of a nice simple image to that. And I think that's nice. It's nice to have those images.
It's useful. It can be useful in life.
Yeah. So I think that is
that's great.
Interesting.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Two Grooms, One Plot. Follow us wherever you go on social medias or wherever you get your podcasts. YouTube, you can watch us. And thank you to Chicago Podcast Studio and Haley, our social media maven. Drop a comment. Let us know if you want us to review something. And we'll be getting some fun content out to you soon. So thank you so much. I am Pavi Proczko. And remember, if you're looking for a new therapist, just email Colin.
Oh my God. You're so stupid. And I'm Colin Funk. And remember, well, now mine sounds... Okay. Remember, one panic attack does not an anxiety disorder make.
Mm-hmm.
And
Thanks,
I
doctor.
don't want to feel like a...
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Two Grooms, One Plot, a Pavitas Productions project, hosted by Colin Funk and Pavi Proczko. This podcast was produced by Chicago Podcast Studio. Our opening cartoon was created by Gloriu, and our theme song was composed by me, Pavi Proczko. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite listening platform. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Two Grooms, One Plot for updates on new episodes and behind-the-scenes content. If you have any feedback, comments, concerns, or kudos, you can email us at twogroomsoneplot@gmail.com. Please rate and review us wherever you can. It would help us out a bunch. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time.